Dear learners, today's lecture is on Jane Austen's novel Emma, which is contained in your paper 4 of your PG curriculum. The lecture will be on the male characters in the novel. Although the novel is nominated after the name of the woman protagonist Emma, begins with the description of the woman concerned as handsome, clever and rich, and it is Emma Woodhouse whose actions, galvanized by her imagination and obstinate thoughts, control the plot. The male characters have their inevitable contribution to the development of the plot. First, the character I would like to focus on is Mr. George Knightley. He is the elder brother-in-law of Emma. That is, the elder brother of Emma's sister Isabella's husband. And we find him first during his visit to the Woodhouse's family, when the valetudinarian Mr. Woodhouse was discussing the problems of marriage with his daughter Emma. He is described by Austen as a, I quote, sensible man about 7 or 8 and 30. It is he who, unlike others, never condescends to flatter Emma on her cherished scheme of matchmaking. While Emma is too narcissistic to realize that in considering matchmaking as almost an entertaining game, and she is a skillful player in it, she is hurting the feelings of others about whom she cares. Knightley, on the other hand, is sensible enough to feel so, and sensible enough to point it out, that Emma supposedly would consider her matchmaking with more concern once she falls in love with a little hope of getting it reciprocated. Mr. Knightley is a man of high morals and admirable manners, compassionate, and has a keen sense of judgment of human psychology. It is he who articulates frankly that Emma was extremely wrong in choosing Mr. Elton to be Harriet's groom, and that would ultimately never make Harriet happy because she loves Martin. He expresses his disgust candidly, telling her that her convictions of social equality are too conventional as primal superstructures of happy marriage. And if Martin is a farmer and thus ill-bred, Harriet, with her unknown parentage, is nevertheless unworthy to claim a socially superior groom. I quote the lines which Mr. Knightley said, "Not Harriet's equal? No, he is not her equal. Indeed, for he is as much her superior in sense as in situation. Emma, your infatuation about the girl blinds you. What are Harriet Smith's claims, either of birth, nature, and education, to my connection higher than Robert Martin? She is the natural daughter of nobody knows whom, which probably no settled provision at all." Yet, as Austen's novel pervades with a sense of psychological realism as well, Knightley is not also above faults. It is his unconscious possessiveness for Emma that prompts him to be jealous of Frank Churchill, whom he feels Emma admires, and hence concocts many comments about Frank. Some critics opine that he is a conduct book for Emma, who teaches her teaches her to be more sympathetic and not to be carried off by impulses, who teaches her to consider the feelings of others prior to her schemes of matchmaking. And it is he who ultimately becomes the love interest of Emma. Thus opening her eyes to the fact that matches cannot be arranged. The next character is Frank Churchill. Frank is the son of Mr. Weston from his previous wife, now dead. Frank had been reared up by his uncle and aunt in London. He is a well-bred man with an attractive personality, dignified manners, and speech that reflects his sobriety. Although well-meaning he is and endeavors in his own way to keep others happy, it is unfortunate that many people fail to understand his sobriety. I quote a line which has been said by John Peter Rumrich in the essay The Importance of Being Frank, where Rumrich says, and I quote, "Frank Churchill changes the stage world of Highbury with social and emotional life, but receives little recognition for his service. Like Emma, critics find Frank lacking when they compare him to George Knightley. Yet, despite his faults, Frank holds a vital structural post in the plot but escapes the fate german to not structurally indispensable characters, that of being merely a formal necessity, a mechanism. Frank Churchill was the one for whom Emma had grown admiration because of his irresistible looks, manners, and way of communication. However, Frank is also deceitful and clever. He was secretly engaged to Jane Fairfax. The news that almost disillusioned Emma for a while and awakened her sensibility that marriage involves the affairs of the heart as much as social status. In a way, he is almost pitted against Knightley. Joseph Lidvack, in the essay Reading Characters, Self, Society and Text in Emma, says, I quote, "Knightley dislikes Frank Churchill not only because the younger man seems to be a rival for Emma's affection, but also because Frank presumes to read everybody's character. Frank is the character who most resembles Emma, a connection she points out at the novel's close when she states that destiny connects us with two characters so much superior to our own." Let us now come to the third character of our discussion, that is Mr. Elton. He is the village vicar, a handsome and an agreeable man, considered to be a welcome addition to any social gathering. He immediately reminds us of William Collins of Pride and Prejudice by the same novelist. We find him to be snobbish from the very beginning. It is him whom Emma considers to be a perfect groom for her friend Harriet, until she becomes aware of her mistake during Elton's indecent marriage proposal to herself during a journey in a carriage. When he reveals his indifference to Harriet and his desire to marry Emma only to take a nouveau riche bride, Miss Augusta, at Bath shortly thereafter, he comes to seem proud conceited and superficial. Next, learners, let us come to the discussion of Mr. Robert Martin. He is our fourth male character of consideration. He is a 24-year-old farmer. Mr. Martin is industrious and good-hearted, though he lacks the refinements of a gentleman. He lives at Abbey Mill Farm, a property owned by Knightley. He lives with his mother and sisters. While initially Emma, with her prejudice, arrogance and delusions of grandeur, dismisses him as a farmer far beneath Harriet Smith as far as social status is concerned, Knightley judiciously considers him as an intelligent gentleman. His letters to Harriet speak well of his education and sense of good grammar. At length, Emma is bound to acknowledge that he is the one who, with his sobriety and sense, would keep his friend happy. He was the one who ultimately married Harriet. Let us now focus on Mr. Woodhouse. He is Emma's father and the patriarch of Harfield, the Woodhouse estate. Though Mr. Woodhouse is nervous, fragile, and prone to hypochondria, he is also known for his friendliness and his attachment to his daughter. He is very resistant to change, to the point that he is unhappy to see his daughter or Emma's governess marry. In this sense, he impedes Emma's growth and acceptance of her adult destiny. He is often foolish and clearly not Emma's intellectual equal, but he comforts and entertains him with insight and affection. Austen says his spirit required support. He was a nervous man, easily depresses and fond of everything that he was used to and hating to part with the change of every kind. Now let us come to Mr. Weston. He is the widower and proprietor of Randalls, who has just married Miss Taylor when the novel begins. Mr. Weston has a son who is Frank, and he is from his first marriage to Miss Churchill. Frank was raised by Miss Churchill's sister and brother-in-law, as you know. Mr. Weston is warm, sociable, and perpetually optimistic. Austen tells us about him. He had, by that time, realized as easy competence enough to secure the purchase of a little estate adjoining Highbury, while he had always longed for. Enough to marry a woman as portionless even as Miss Taylor, and to live according to the wishes of his own friendly and social disposition. It is hence apparent that he is also pertaining to the social norms of marrying a socially inferior and economically deprived woman, thereby helping her with economic comfort. In spite of being much older than Miss Taylor, he married her to avoid being socially ostracized as a single man. So here we end with the discussion of the major male characters in the novel Emma. Thank you.